I'm Samuel Honnold, and this is what's not in the news. I'm a big fan of Allie Reisman. Allie testified against Dr. Larry Nasser, led the U.S. Olympic gymnastics team, did us proud as a nation. Big fan of Gabby too, Gabby Douglas. She's an Iowan, fellow Iowan. And we've got this guy put away, this Larry Nasser, filthy, nasty doctor that abused very, very many of our Olympic athletes. Got to pick at him going to Arizona to the maximum security. His new home. Oh, look at that. Look at that girl mistreating him. That's your new life, Larry. There he is in his fruit suit. Now, Joni Ernst, senator from the state of Iowa, is in the news announcing that there's going to be a congressional committee to investigate USA Gymnastics and the Olympic Committee after the Larry Nasser sex abuse conviction. It's about time, and I'm really glad to hear this. Now, what I'm curious about, and I'm going to send this to Joni. I voted for Joni. I'm a big fan of Joni. What Joni said when she asked for our votes to send her to Washington, she said, not only have I had a lifetime of military service, she said, I grew up on a hog farm in the state of Iowa, castrating hogs. And she said, and if you elect me and send me to Washington, I assure you, I know how to make them squeal. Of course, she was talking about cutting out pork barrel spending, but she was also talking about all other sorts of filthy activities that have been going on in this nation. Among them, the abuse of children. MK Ultra is the name of CIA program. It has other names. It's Project Monarch. This is why the Monarch butterfly is so prolific in story and news and movies, in the one-eyed portraits of actors, many of which are victims of Monarch-type programming. It's about time that this is unveiled and that we as a nation begin to face how much abuse, how much splitting of the psyche has happened within our nation, and to solve it, to help these people to heal. Ever since this book came out, this is the original landmark text on dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder. There was a very strong thrust when I was in Bible school to eliminate two key doctrines. One was the idea of multiple personality disorder, and the other was nephilic hybrids, which are addressed in the Bible in Genesis 6, giants. Of course, now in our age of chimeras and experimentation and humansies, that's more important than it's ever been. Gabby said when she was asked about how she can continue to train, she did not go in and testify directly against Dr. Nasser. What Abby said, she said, I'm in training, I have to compete. And the reporter asked her, she said, Gabby, how do you do it? How do you keep your mind on training? Gabby's response was, you have to learn to dissociate. You have to learn to dissociate. Remember, Gabby's from West Des Moines, Iowa, home of Johnny Gosh, the original milk carton kid. Of course, I grew up in Iowa, and I ate a lot of cereal looking at the picture of Johnny Gosh. He disappeared in 1982. And his mother, Noreen Gosh, would just never let the issue go. Later, it was found that the West Des Moines Police Department was in on the Johnny Gosh disappearance. that the newspaper there in the area was in on it, and that John Gosch, the father of disappeared Johnny and Noreen Gosch's husband, was also in on the crime. All of it's in Noreen's book, Why Johnny Can't Come Home. Why Johnny Can't Come Home. And you can contact Noreen directly, and she would be happy to get you a copy of her book. And here's what it talks about. The Rabbit Hole. Also, the book The Rabbit Hole by David Schroeder, another very proximate from Omaha, Nebraska. Very proximate victim of MK Ultra mind control and sexual trauma-based programming. Also wrote a book on this, something we can all learn from. How long are we going to put up with this as a nation? When are we going to string these people up by their heels? Now, we have laws against this. They can be enforced. We don't need new laws, okay? We just need to lock people up when they abuse children and when they are part of this type of occult activity. Moving further, in Omaha, this excellent book was written about another congressional committee. Joni, this has been done before at the state level. This is a state senator, John DeCamp, who wrote this book, The Franklin Cover-Up. He also went to the FBI field office. He also found out that not only was the FBI in on it, the leader of it was Nick O'Hara, Agent Nick O'Hara of the Omaha field office, and Robert Wadman, the chief of police of the Omaha PD, also the Omaha World Herald. So the press was in on it. What do you know? Now this has all been documented for us, and we can read all about it. A BBC documentary, the rights to this were bought for either $500,000 or $1 million, and the movie disappeared. But one VHS copy survived, and it's on YouTube. This is a really good place to start. If you want to know, if you as an American want to know what's happening in our nation, what's been going on for a long, long time, and why our kids are not right, why people grow up and they're not right, it's because they've been subjected to trauma-based mind control. I think that Gabby and Allie and their whole generation, I think they're tough enough that they're going to get through this. They're going to break through their emotional issues and come back to the American mindset. All this comes from the East, from the oppressive regimes. It comes from Rome, it comes from the Soviet Union, and it was long known that the Soviet athletes grew up in a stable. They didn't grow up in a home. They trained full time. They had no social life, no socialization, no building of emotions and social skills. And the Soviets, they thought that was the best way. They thought this made the best athletes and the best soldiers. And we as Americans thought, no, having a home, a family, a church family, married parents that love and discipline in a loving manner, not in a manner that the pain is so great that it causes diffraction and dissociation within the psyche. We as Americans always thought our way was better. And what is not in the news is that the whole USA Gymnastics scandal, this Eastern Soviet Roman Catholic abuse method of making athletes, has become the way that it's done in America. We can take it back to figure skating a few years ago and find, in the case of Tonya Harding, I just saw the movie about her, and let me tell you, bring your barf bag. It's really a rough one to get through. It's rated R. It's full of filthiness, but it does talk a little bit about Tanya's life and how rough her bringing up was. Tonya never got the chance to be a person. It's probably Margot Robbie's story as well, probably her own life story. If we're going to go on a little bit with the movies, these are all in the story, aside from the actresses being Monarch projects, in the movie itself. Eastern Soviet programming. Black Widow, new one coming out, Red Sparrow, all about the same thing. The production factory for Russian honey traps. This one's 3 or 4 years old. Hannah, the little girl that never had a life, just taught to kill and to be a dissociate. Charlize played the Atomic Blonde. This was a triangle. British intelligence operating in East Germany, operating with the Soviets, and in the end, All of them thought she was their girl and their agent. In the end, she comes home, and who was her handler? The CIA. Little bit of a spoiler alert after the fact. My goodness, Deadpool. This movie, here again, adults, if you go to see this, bring your barf bag because it's disgusting, but it's all about how he and his girlfriend, there he is without the costume, and his girlfriend were subjected to Monarch sexual trauma-based programming their whole life. I think this generation's strong enough to survive it, to be survivors, and to come back to being real humans and people. Here's Michaela Maroney, another Nasser victim, another Olympian, a great hero, great American. This article tells how the issue has been covered up with secret settlements all these years. Institutions seeking to protect their reputations use hush money or secret settlements, and the more victims are silenced, the more predators are enabled. Confidential settlements in sex offense cases are a major reason why predators, whether Catholic priests, Harvey Weinstein, or Bill Cosby, were able to hide sexual harassment or assault for so many years. Public knowledge is a powerful key to setting off an avalanche of reports to authorities and ultimately action against serial abusers. The Roman Catholic Church turned silencing victims and settling secretly into a dark art form in its decades-long quest to hide abuse by priests of thousands of youngsters. And then it goes into the Boston Globe article. The movie Spotlight was made about this. Again, that's an excellent place to start if an American wants to face what's really been going on in our nation. The whole purpose of this abuse was not that this doctor had a sexual desire. It was that he wanted to crack their brains and subjected these beautiful young girls to torture in order to accomplish that end, under the idea that it makes it a better performer and a better athlete. This is diabolical. It is a dark art. Going back to Avatar, which is about chimeras as well as programming, it's very clear that the phallus, represented by the braid, is the key to absolute obedience. That once the phallus is inserted into whatever beast, person, or thing, it causes a link. And that link can be used for absolute control. Sigourney Weaver's character says to this maid, she says, "Don't play with that, you'll go blind." Of course, referring to the ancient American wives' tale, that young people ought to not be sexually active or to toy with sexuality. If I have time on this film to talk a little bit more about Bible school, these two doctrines, they tried very hard, and this was a social thing. It moved through the society and not necessarily through the professorship. I have another video on the bringing down of the infiltration and the destruction of the last and the greatest Bible school and the last and the greatest castle of Christianity from the city of Tulsa that has spread the gospel worldwide. This is a great book about, it's a little small, but it talks about Armand Hammer. And there he is with Gorbachev. There's Gorbachev. There's Armand Hammer. Talks about him being a Soviet agent, his father being one of the founders of the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, him laundering money and treasures that were stolen from the czars in 1917, and going on continuing to be a Soviet agent, not only in those pre-World War II days, but that he reestablished those connections after World War II and was very, very active in the Communist Party in America for the Comintern. The new big landmark central building at Oral Roberts University is the Armand Hammer Center. And it was the money, millions, was donated by this foundation for the purpose of infiltrating. It's hit the news that the Communist Chinese are involved in all of these universities. The University of Texas, Austin. It's mind-blowing. Books like this have caused us to, as church, as Americans, as people who believe in God and country and traditional values, this was intentionally to throw us off of the track. There's been a very, very strong movement to get America away from believing that our children are being treated this way. But the fact is, it's true. And now that Trump is in office, the arrests of violators, of sexual abusers, of rapists, of people keeping children in dungeons has gone up about 500%. It's mind-blowing. And I'm really glad to see these people going and answering for their crimes. Hopefully, we as a society can assimilate and assist the victims and help them to come and become contributing Americans that are monolithic, that are in their mind. They're all one person. And again, ladies, Gabby, Allie, all the victims of Larry Nasser, America apologizes for sweeping this under the rug, and we hope to help you. And we thank you for being such great competitors and for being strong enough to bring this to the forefront. Now, let's all fight this fight and put this away from our midst. Oh, also, if anyone wants to know where America is in these hours, it's all in the last 3 or 4 chapters of the book of Judges in the Bible, which talks about this cancer growing in another nation and it being rooted out. It was a bloody process. I'm Samuel Honnold. That's what's not in the news.